Thanks, Risha.
Thanks, Risha. I'm really excited to be part of our very first virtual conference, and it's amazing that we can connect with so many of you from around the world, and I hope you're able to continue the conversation with each other, with us and each other online after the conference as well. So this is a recorded session. However, Emmanuel and I are here live on chat to answer your questions. Please help us out and use the chat function and post your questions to all participants so you can interact with each other and we can get this conversation going. When I think about agility, my mind automatically goes to the ability to shift and change quickly. I believe content agility aligns to that. To build a right fit solution, you can quickly shift and change with the needs of your business. When you incorporate content agility into your practice, think about these three things. Alignment to the business, spend your time building the right learning assets, and constantly change with the business. So the first part of that is align. And you want to align your learning strategy with the business priorities. When I think of business priorities, I try to categorize them in three ways. Foundational, and those are the priorities of the business. They need it to maintain. This can be things like customer service, sales skills, core product knowledge, the basics. It could align to what you teach new hires or what you need your tenured associates to keep top of mind. I also think about growth, and these are the business priorities that the business needs to grow the business. Think of it as like a new initiatives that they've planned for. It could be a new product offering, new leadership skills, new markets to tackle, new technology. And when I think of these, everyone in the company is likely going to need to be taught something new, and you're likely going to need a change management plan. And then the third is emerging, and these are the priorities no one sees coming. They're surprises, they have a significant impact on the business and will immediately become top priority. Something like a global pandemic. A year ago, we wouldn't have imagined it would be our reality today, and it's hit our frontline workers hard. When you build your learning strategy, keep it aligned to support each type of business priority. Each type will require a little bit of a different learning strategy. If you need to treat an emerging priority the same as a foundational priority, you'd end up missing the opportunity by spending too much time analyzing the challenge and designing the perfect solution. Emerging priorities, as you've seen this year, require immediate action. Okay, so that leads us to learning assets. And by learning assets, it's anything you build or use to teach. Build the right learning asset for the job. Not all learning delivery mechanisms are created. I can write an email or communication brief a whole lot quicker than I can build out an interactive multimedia module. And not everything needs an interactive multimedia module. So here's an example of criteria that I've built. And so this works for 90% of the things that, the conversations that I have. I always start on the left with, does it impact the business financially? And I ask myself a bunch of questions, or I ask my business partner a bunch of questions and have different conversations to lead me to the learning delivery method on the right. And so these apply to me and my business and my interactions with clients. However, I encourage you to build your own so that you can add the criteria that's really important to your business and maybe take out some of the ones that I have that are not so important to you. The important thing to think about is this isn't although the flow chart's yes and no, these are conversations to have. They're not, let me send these questions to my business partner and they'll answer them, and then we'll know. You really want to use this to get an understanding of what's going on in the business so that you can deliver the right solution for them as they need, or so that you can deliver the right solution to drive the business need. So now that we have alignment on what delivery mechanisms fit the challenge of the business, Manuel, can you jump in and talk about how we can optimize the build of content?
I'd love to. I'd love to. When starting to look at content, there's a couple ways that you can go. You could either build it, you could buy it, or you could bring it. If you have things that you already if you have assets that you're already using, then a good thing to do is evaluate what you currently have. I know a lot of us, it seems like we've been accumulating assets and resources over the course of our lifetime that we continue using. And I think that's a great place to start. But we really need to make sure that it's focused and aligned with the needs of the business. So a couple things to consider when we start looking at, are we going to repurpose existing training? One of the first things is did the training have the result that you wanted to? You might hear us talk about results a little bit as Exonify, but the truth of the matter is, if you are delivering the same training every year and it's not having the results that you want to look at, it's a great time to look at, how am I going to be repurposing this and what for? And how do we make sure that it aligns with what the results that we're looking for? Following up with that question, why can it or should it be repurposed? If it had some really great elements to it, if there were elements that people enjoyed or remembered, those are important alongside of that matching the business goal. The other thing too is that a lot of times we're looking at things that may have been relevant at the time, but no longer have that same relevance in the future. So a couple things to look at when we're talking about repurposing existing training. The first one is, did it have the desired result that you were looking for? When we look back at training, sometimes we deliver training year after year after year, whether it be compliance or it be soft skills or knowledge. But we want to really start to evaluate if it's hitting the target of what we wanted to, the goals that we wanted to achieve. And then we can ask ourselves, why should it be or can it be repurposed? Is it an element of something that is still an ongoing issue? Are we thinking about it in a different light? Or is it something that we need to be able to change behavior on? Should it be repurposed? Those things will help you kind of understand why, if they should be. What are
Emmanuel, is there, oh, sorry.
No, that's great. It's a good time to.
Emmanuel, is there something that we shouldn't repurpose?
I think anything that's irrelevant. And by that, the relevance of things I think is going to be the key part. Anything that no longer suits the business need, anything that is that it needs to be reframed in a different light. I think we might have spoken about that before. But I believe that those are the kind of things that we start to think about when we repurpose. Maybe they're best left aside, or if it just becomes information for the sake of information. A lot of times we spend time building these great assets that may just be something that we like. Having that critical eye on them are there. Anything that you have not decided not to repurpose?
I find it's really tough because when you spend a whole lot of time building something, you get really emotionally attached to it. Mm-hmm. And so I think, anything that doesn't drive the behavior that you're looking for, divorce it and let it go and start looking for things that are going to teach the behavior that you need. Absolutely.
I think that's key. And I think the great thing too is that if you've had success with training before, if it's something that's stuck in people's head and that they really remembered, or they've given you feedback after about how it impacted them, Those are really great things to be able to mine out of your training and keep and bring forward. So that, did people enjoy it? Was it something that was remembered? Those are maybe triggers to say that the message was actually getting across in the way that it was intended. The other thing to think about is, how long was the current experience? Is training going to be something that ends up being the length that it is because of the content that we need to consume? Or have we thought through the ways that we can deliver it in a way that they can use the information when they need it, or maybe even at the time of need? So evaluating not just the length of it, but the volume of the training, or how much is there, is going to be an important factor as well too. Another thing to look at is the longevity of the information that you're training on. I know it's tough being able to go back and look at things that are those 80s PowerPoints, maybe some of the videos of people wearing a uniform that may not be the same as the current day. So being able to look at that information and determine whether or not it can be or should be repurposed is going to be another key element. The second piece is building to keep pace with change. Especially now and over the past couple of months, we've seen a lot of change happen. And sometimes it requires us to start again and rethink the way that we do training and rethink exactly what we're training. Even if some of the things are core principles or tenets that we're pulling forward, we still might need to reframe them in a different light. So building new to keep up with the pace of change can be very important. When building, I think some of these lessons we've actually heard before when Lisa was speaking earlier. We want to maintain the focus and of what the impact of training will have on our frontline behaviors and decision making. So really getting back to, what's the purpose here? What are the desired results? How are we going to be able to think about the end goal of what that training is going to lead to? The other thing is, if the training is too vague or expands too much, the relevance could be lost. And I think that's an important thing. Microlearning is an interesting beast in terms of breaking up information into really small, bite-sized pieces so that you understand that it's consumed in a way that is usable, especially when it comes to our memories. But if we have too much, then people get the feeling that the training is not useful or is maybe unnecessary or a waste of time. So we want to be conscious of the scope that we have when we're designing. The other thing we want to look at is, how do we build content that directly deals with the issues that we want to encounter. Over the past couple of months, we've seen a lot of people develop great resources on hand washing and being able to keep safe in your environment. We can really speak to what the benefits of those things are and make it directly relatable to the information that you're putting out. That's going to be crucial as well. And have we mentioned results yet? Always be concerned about what the end goal is and how we can make sure that everything that we do in training is pushing towards that end. So there are 3 criteria to help us get started when we're thinking about whether we should build, bring, or buy content. A lot of these things are based off of what our needs are for the time. So do we have the budget? Do we have the time? And do we have the resources? So if you're short on budget, there's a couple things that you can do that will help you out. First thing is getting to know your business. There's no shortcut for getting to know the intimate details of what your frontline workers' challenges are and how we can help them celebrate their victories. By doing this, it gets you directly to the heart of why the training is going to be important to them. The other thing is, if you can invest time into writing effective questions, it's going to help you in the long run to meet that desired performance. Nothing worse than getting a question that doesn't apply to anything that relates to what you're doing. You want to make sure that those questions, and especially the different styles of questions, suit the type of training that you're using and really can push that training much, much farther. And of course, We can reuse and recycle, as we mentioned before. Repurpose visual assets, of course, not ones that are distracting to the viewer, but you can find free resources for media and things that you can share that way. So repurpose some of the things that are still on brand, on target, and allow us to kind of shorten our time for development. A lot of us are short on time, not just time to create these trainings, but also to be able to deliver them as well too. Life comes at us quickly, and to be able to do so, we can leverage communication, direct communication, things like selfie videos that can be shot really quickly and easily to get the message out there to your people and distributed. One-pagers are great, especially if they're reinforced with questions along the way and really focused around those results that you want. There's a couple mediums to be able to do this within our platform, things like broadcast messages and team messages that really get to the individuals where they're at in the flow of their workday. So a great way to be able to leverage direct communication. The other thing you could do is introduce a topic. So if we start with topic introductions that maybe don't complete the whole concept of the topic, but start with the key principles that they need to learn, and then expand as you go, creating assets in the future and making a plan to build them at different dates will help you to really shorten that timeline to get information out there quickly, but not forget about reinforcing it or building on it as we go. And of course, sharing the learning load is one of the biggest tips and tricks that I've learned in the last couple of years. When creating your assets and understanding what people are struggling with, go and leverage and deputize people like managers and star performers, frontline leads to help you develop this content. They're in the trenches every day and they know what their challenges are. And they oftentimes have a solution for it if one isn't already presented. Leverage them, help them to work with you to be able to develop content.
Manuel,
Yeah.
I've noticed like a lot of times our stars and our managers, they're so busy doing the jobs that they do so well. How do you fit in asking them for help without overpowering them and taxing their time too much?
Absolutely. I think be intentional about it. There's a couple of things that really worked for me when I go into a new environment. If I can have a conversation with somebody at the water cooler or over coffee and really just get into what are your challenges? What are you seeing? How can you have that? A lot of people have that time for a conversation. You can document it if you want while you're listening, or you can take it offline with them and allow them to say, hey, you know what, by the end of this week, could you just write some of those things down for me? And we can start compiling a list of those things. So really be intentional about the conversations that you're having. Another thing I've seen that's been successful is people creating a program around it. For those who want to get more into developing content, set up some ways so that they can actually work towards that goal, one of which being building a little bit at a time when they have downtime, or either dedicating some specific time for them to be able to do that. I've seen that as being successful. I'm interested in, especially in the chat, if you have other ways that that worked for you. Now, what if you need more resources or need to build a bigger team? Well, great thing is that we've thought about that as well too. So leveraging pre-made content, and we'll talk a little bit about our content marketplace, is a great way to be able to expand your team and expand the topics that you can actually get that are specific to your industry that will work for you. The other thing is that we have some great instructional designers that can expand your team as well too. So they're great at tapping into what the unique needs of your particular business is, and helping you to be able to put that in a way that is going to be right fit and the right size for your learning needs. The other thing is that a little bit of planning goes a long way. As I was saying before about being intentional, this is a great way to start thinking strategically about what are the needs of every department in your business or organization, and starting to think of how we can develop those long-term goals or really meet those key performance indicators in a way that's going to allow training to be the center focus, but also not dominate their time. So really start thinking, the planning, and even leverage help if you need to. So some great tips for buying and acquiring content. One of the first things that you find when you're looking at content out there is that they are in a variety of different formats. Find something that's going to fit your delivery method and the way that you want to be able to communicate to your people or train your people. I think that's going to be a big piece. If you're doing microlearning, find a company that really specializes in those short bursts and allowing you to be able to meet that specific need. The other thing is, does it fit your organization's culture, or can it be modified to do so? If your organization is looking at something that doesn't relate to them, then the learning could be lost just simply in that disconnect there. So really find something that's going to be good for your organization, that speaks to the issues and the problems that you're having. And then how can you tell it's working? Have we mentioned results yet? But that's another great way to be able to find out, is this going to be the right content for us? Is it going to get us to the place that we want? And how am I going to know that when I'm looking for content or trying to acquire content? Another key piece is, where is the information coming from? We've worked really hard to be able to put together some great content based off of industry professionals and experts in different areas and in different industries. Sometimes, especially in a world of Wikipedia and the internet, you can get information from all sorts of different places, and you're never really sure where it might have come from or how correct it might be. But using verified sources, proven industry experts, can really make the difference in how you're training those. And then how well does it align with the traits of the challenges that you're facing? Oftentimes we can find great material, but maybe it's not exactly what we're dealing with or how we would use it in our organization. So being able to find things that are aligned to the challenges you're facing can be important as well too. Make sure to visit our content marketplace if you haven't already. And it's a great place to be able to find everything that checks off the check marks on those lists. And I think, Lisa, maybe you can speak to us a bit about governance.
I can. Governance all day long. So we talked a little bit about aligning to business needs. We talked a lot about, building the right content. And now, we're into every day. So this is change. Change is constant. Make sure you always build the right knowledge in your workforce. Once you have the right learning assets built, set a plan to evaluate them regularly to make sure they're still aligned to your business priorities. Do you need to prioritize delivery to meet the need of an emerging priority? The faster you can access the information, the faster you can adjust and stay aligned with the business instead of 2 or 3 steps behind them. How often are you meeting with senior leadership across the organization to identify what's happening in the business outside of your department? Who are the right people to connect with to get an honest assessment of the possible changes? It's important for you to build those relationships so you stay in line with what's happening with the business. Once or twice a year is not enough. Change happens quickly. And if you've built those relationships, they'll come to you because you've proven that you're in line with the business and are there to help them, instead of saying, well, it's going to take us 6 months to get that out. An emerging priority, that's not good enough. It needs to get out there straight away. Build credibility when you're sharing with your senior leadership and when you're meeting with them. Share how learning has impacted their team's ability to deliver priorities on important to that leader. Give them examples of their team members or departments with the highest results that have the highest sustained knowledge. So you're constantly building those relationships. You're constantly touching base with your senior leaders, and you're giving them something that is helping them to drive their initiatives. And I would meet with them regularly and make sure you bring something to the table, like how sustained knowledge has helped them achieve their results, so that you're building credibility, and they'll start coming to you. And that's really where the place you want to be. And change. Don't hold them off and say it's going to take a little while. When they have an emerging priority, they need something to happen immediately. So do your best to get out whatever you can in a short period of time to help them meet their goals. And use your delivery criteria, because sometimes it's just a communication or an email or, as Emmanuel said, a video selfie, as opposed to the multimedia interactive module, which are really good, but not always the right delivery mechanism for an emerging change. So I think that brings us to the end of the recording. What we'd really like now is for you to start telling us in the chat how you build your content agility. And we'll be talking to you in a minute.